Hey guys, I'm here with the Harbor Freight Titanium Easy Flux 125 Flux Core Welder. I wanted to make a quick video and get right to the point about a couple of key features, pros and cons of this welder from a hobbyist perspective. Now, like I said, I am a hobbyist. I'm not a pro by any means necessary. I really only have maybe 60 to 80 hours of welding under my belt in various forms of welding like MIG, TIG, and stick. And I think I provide a good sample pool of what some of the other welders who are looking at this welder might be. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get started. Another quick disclaimer, I'm only going to be reviewing this exact welder. I'm not going to be comparing it against other welders, other types of welders like TIG, MIG, or stick, and I think you just need to know what kind of welder you're getting yourself into. It's a sub $200 welder without use of any kinds of gas overlays or anything like that, and I think that it's tailored primarily towards hobbyists and do-it-yourselfers. I wouldn't recommend getting this welder if you're a professional, unless you're going to be just doing quick repair jobs while you go get your professional welder that's out at the shop or something. Like I said, I think this is more tailored towards someone who's a do-it-yourselfer or a hobbyist, someone who just wants to play around with some steel in the garage, or maybe has a small project that they've been putting off because they don't have a welder. So a few quick notes on safety. This welder actually doesn't come with any safety features in the box. It doesn't come with those cheap face welding shields you can sometimes see bundled with welders, goggles, gloves, anything like that. So a few bare minimum items that I recommend getting before you start welding are welding gloves, a welding helmet, denim jeans, closed-toed shoes, and a long sleeve 100% cotton shirt. You have to make sure it's cotton because that is generally more fire resistant than a synthetic type of long sleeve shirt. A couple safety items that I would recommend you upgrade if you have the ability is a face respirator with the appropriate style filters installed. I'll show a clip real quick right here of the amount of smoke that pours off while you're welding. You definitely want to keep that out of your lungs. You're actually making a small ozone at the tip of the weld, and that can just release a lot of gases, and it's really, really dangerous. I really like my auto darkening welding helmet. I think I picked it up offline for 30 or 40 bucks a couple of years ago. It makes lining up your weld and getting ready for your weld that much easier, and it still gives you adequate eye protection. I also really like the fire resistant welding jacket that I got. This one is made by Black Stallion, and it just gives me a little bit of extra peace of mind. You know, it's maybe a half step up from a cotton shirt, but it doesn't give you protection from, like, if you're overhead welding or doing any serious cutting or anything like that. It's, again, more tailored kind of towards a hobbyist working in his garage or something. And then there's a couple extra tools that I would recommend picking up. Clamps are really useful for holding your piece in place while you're welding or securing your material to whatever welding table you're using. A hammer is great for beating things back into place or knocking off slag. Needle nose pliers are good for cutting your wire if you have a blockage or something. They actually make specifically welding needle nose pliers if you need them. There are some angle magnets that you can pick up also cheaply from Harbor Freight. They're great if you're trying to do a 90-degree weld or a 135-degree weld, something like that. They do make chisel brushes for when you're trying to clean off your slag on your weld, but I just use a cordless drill with a wire wheel attachment, and then my 4.5-inch grinder I use with a flap disc or a cutoff wheel for cleaning up my work or cutting off lengths or whatever shape that I'm going to be welding next. So those are just a couple extra tools that I would recommend. So a couple other features that drew me into this welder: it's overall a very small welder. It's also very lightweight, so it's easy to move around if you have to. It's very mobile. The wire gun and grounding line, I haven't had any issue with overall length. You know, I've never been saying I wish I had an extra couple feet here. That might be in particular to how light it is and easy to move around. You can put it on the floor. I, for instance, just have mine sitting on a stool right here. One complaint that I do have about the front panel is the voltage and wire speed selection knobs. I don't really get why they chose for scale to go from like A to J and 1 to 10. When I was originally doing a lot of my welding with this, it was hard to get an apples-to-apples comparison of where I was with other good welders and their tips for what they were using. So I wish they would have gone with a more widely accepted range for those values. But On the inside of the welder, it does have a handy chart inside of suggested settings for 18 gauge all the way up through 3/16 of an inch. Now I'll put a table up here of some of the settings that I found that were really good for me for, T-joints, overlaps, butt welds, anything like that for 1/8 of an inch and 3/16 of an inch. I haven't gotten a chance to weld any smaller thickness like 14 through 18 gauge, but I would expect that the settings that they provide are at least a good starting point, and then you can experiment from there. This welder does just take 1 or 2 pound spools of wire. I'm actually still using the originally supplied wire spool that was given with the unit itself. It does come with a 1 pound spool. So overall, that's pretty much it for the inside. It does have a cold wire feed option, which I think is great, so you don't have to sit there with the gun with its button depressed. You can feed it through the wire gun a lot faster with that cold feed option. I was also really glad that this didn't have a requirement for gas overlay. I don't really have the means of getting all the regulators or having a gas bottle in this garage anyway, so that was great to be able to weld with literally everything that you see here. Another big selling point was the power requirements. A lot of welders that I had seen online, you needed a 20 amp circuit, or you needed 220, 240 volt, and I really liked that I could just plug this right into the wall and not have to worry about it from there. As long as I'm not running any other large pieces of equipment, this welder has been welding solidly and not had an issue with power interruptions or tripping breakers or anything like that. So overall, that's my impressions of the functionality, the size, its restrictions, and some of the faults here on the front. But overall, very impressed with the form and functionality of the welder so far. So now the most important question: how well does it weld? Well, before we talk about that, I wanted to just briefly mention that I was very impressed that this unit didn't suddenly burst into flames or cause an explosion. And once I got past that, my initial welds actually weren't all that good. I was a little underwhelmed with how the welds were looking. I'll throw some pictures up here for you to take a quick look at on some of my initial welds. And you can just see that I was either getting too much blow through or I was going too fast, and that mostly probably was my unfamiliarity with the front dials and how this thing is set up. And then once I did a little bit more digging, watched a couple other videos online, and just practiced, I started to get some really high quality welds. Again, I'll show some pictures here. And overall, very impressed by the quality of this welder, considering the price point. Again, this is just me from a hobbyist perspective and someone who is a casual welder on weekends, a DIY weekend warrior kind of person. I think this welder will serve you fantastically. I think once you get those settings dialed in and you have some hours on the machine, then you can start taking on your serious projects where you know that you only get one shot at it, if you're welding something important. And always remember, a grinder in paint makes me the welder I ain't. But I think it would be silly of me to do this whole review and not actually show you a couple real-time welds that I've done and the results that you can see on camera. So let me go ahead and get that set up and take you through the process. a nice bead. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little montage of welding. I think the proof is most certainly in the pudding. I think that this welder, for being $170, did a phenomenal job on both the 1/8 and 3/16 steel. Certainly after you do a good job of prep work with cleaning your material and making sure you have good connections between everything. So overall, again, I'm very pleased in this welder and how it's performed over the past couple weeks for me, and I'm looking forward to getting a lot of good use out of it. Thanks again, guys, for watching. I hope you enjoyed the right-to-the-point review of the Titanium Easy Flux 125 Flux Core Welder. If you did enjoy the video, I would ask if you could like and subscribe. It does help me out, as well as it shows other viewers who are looking for the same kind of information that this was a helpful video for you and that it might benefit them as well. Thanks again.